The morning begins quietly on a modest British high street, the kind lined with charity shops, kebab takeaways, and a red post box. Leaning slightly from age, pavement glistens with fresh drizzle as the auditor walks, camera steady in hand. Across the street, two officers stand outside a council building, chatting casually beside their marked car. Their relaxed posture shifts when they notice the lens. The auditor doesn't speak immediately. He lets the silence do the work. One officer adjusts his stab vest, the other folds his arms. The camera hums softly, recording everything. It's a simple act, filming in public. Yet the reaction it provokes exposes a truth that cuts deep into authority. The moment is small, but it carries weight. One calm citizen, one question, and a world of misunderstanding waiting to unfold. The first question cuts through the air. Why are you filming us? The tone is firm but uncertain, the kind of authority used to compliance. The auditor answers politely, explaining that the space is public, and filming public officials is lawful. His words are calm, deliberate, instructional. The officer frowns, his radio hand twitching. "Do you have ID?" he asks. The reply is immediate. "Not required unless suspected of an offense." Silence follows. Not confrontation, just the sound of understanding meeting resistance. The auditor doesn't move closer or louder. He holds his ground through knowledge alone. A second officer, senior by tone if not by rank, joins the exchange. His voice is more composed. "You can't just record us without reason." The auditor's reply comes measured. "You're public servants, performing public duties. I'm recording for transparency." There's a flicker of discomfort, not anger, but recognition. The officers exchange glances. Both know there's no legal breach, yet pride resists yielding. Around them, the world hums quietly on. Buses, footsteps, small talk. While within this space, the law is being tested and reaffirmed, one sentence at a time. The exchange mellows. No raised voices, no harsh words. Just correction through dialogue. The auditor keeps quoting exact lines from police guidance, his voice low and certain. The constables now listen carefully, nodding slightly as understanding begins to settle. For once, authority isn't eroded, it's educated. The lesson plays out not in hostility, but in civility. Every second recorded stands as a quiet example that law, when known and respected, needs no defense beyond clarity. The senior officer calls in, requesting confirmation. The reply crackles through the radio. "No offenses, filming allowed." Both officers exhale faintly, their postures easing. The auditor lowers his camera slightly but keeps it recording, offering a polite, "Thank you for checking." It's not victory, it's vindication. The officers nod, their earlier firmness replaced with quiet professionalism. As the auditor walks away, the footage captures what words cannot. Understanding achieved without conflict. In a country defined by civility and law, this is what modern accountability looks like. Hours later, the footage plays back in the quiet of the auditor's home office. The room hums with the soft whir of a computer fan, screen light reflecting in his eyes. Each frame reveals small details. The pause before the officer's question, the flicker of uncertainty behind their words. The auditor's expression remains calm, analytical. This isn't entertainment. It's evidence of education in progress. He leans back in his chair, reflecting on the importance of understanding the laws we expect others to uphold. The footage isn't about humiliation. It's about accountability, presented plainly. As the cursor moves across the timeline, he marks key timestamps, editing for clarity, not drama. Outside, evening. Rain begins again, steady and familiar. The video uploads quietly overnight. By morning, notifications begin to appear. Comments, shares, questions. Some viewers praise the auditor's composure. Others criticize his motives. The debate is immediate and polarized. But amid the noise, one theme repeats. Why didn't the officers know the law? The clip, intended as documentation, has become a public discussion on training, accountability, and respect. The auditor scrolls through the responses without replying, letting the footage speak for itself. For the first time, the small high street incident begins to ripple beyond its borders, turning private learning into collective reflection. By midday, the clip reaches thousands. Legal experts weigh in online, quoting sections of police conduct policy and PACE Code AE. Journalists begin contacting the auditor for statements, but he declines. He prefers the footage to stand unembellished. The comments turn thoughtful. This isn't anti-police, one viewer writes. It's pro-knowledge. Slowly, the tone of conversation shifts from confrontation to curiosity. What began as a tense 5-minute encounter now becomes a lesson discussed nationwide, sparking interest from people who'd never questioned their rights before. Inside the local police station, the same footage plays again, this time in a briefing room. Officers sit quietly as the sergeant pauses at key moments. This, he says, pointing at the screen, is what not knowing looks like. There's no anger, only understanding. Some nod, others shift uncomfortably. One officer mutters, "It's hard to know every law." The sergeant replies, "Then know the ones that matter to how you deal with the public." It's a simple but important exchange. Authority learning humility from an unlikely teacher behind a camera. Later that week, the auditor posts a follow-up. He thanks viewers for their engagement and clarifies his intent. The goal isn't to embarrass. It is to educate both sides. His voice is calm, the same as it was on the street. Respect the law, and it'll respect you. The message spreads further, shared by civil liberty groups and training advocates alike. What began as tension now becomes teaching, not through shouting but through example. The clip becomes part of something bigger, a reminder that awareness, when calmly exercised, can reshape an institution. Within 48 hours, the clip has gone viral. News tickers run it under headlines like "Civic Auditor Challenges Police Knowledge." On social media, threads swell with arguments, some defensive, others demanding reform. The auditor remains silent. His video was never a spectacle, yet it's become one. The calm tone of his footage contrasts sharply with the noise online, where outrage fuels engagement. In living rooms, pubs, and police canteens alike, the question echoes. How did a simple question expose such a gap in training? The discussion grows not from anger, but from awareness. An entire nation suddenly reminded that authority, like respect, must be earned through understanding. In a local station miles away, a group of officers sit around a monitor. The clip plays again, this time in silence, the room thick with unease. The sergeant pauses mid-frame. The moment the auditor quoted legislation and says quietly, "We all need to know this better." No one argues. Even those who rolled their eyes at auditors now recognize something different. This was no provocation. It was correction. For the first time, embarrassment becomes motivation. The video is no longer an internet spectacle. It's a mirror showing where knowledge should have been. Public curiosity intensifies. Talk radio hosts and legal podcasts pick up the debate, inviting retired officers and solicitors to weigh in. Auditors are only as provocative as the ignorance they uncover. One guest remarks, drawing quiet agreement from listeners. The conversation turns from legality to professionalism. Should training evolve with technology and public scrutiny? The consensus forms quietly but firmly. Yes, a single recording has now become a catalyst for conversation across every level of policing. The line between critic and collaborator begins to blur. By the weekend, national newspapers print opinion pieces dissecting the encounter. Some praise the auditor's composure, others question the ethics of filming officers. But between every viewpoint lies a shared recognition. that the public has a right to know how laws are applied. Editorials quote directly from the footage, noting the civility that defined it. Calm words, not confrontation, are what made it resonate. The debate is no longer about the man behind the camera, but the principles in front of it. A week after posting, the auditor receives an email from a police media liaison officer. The message thanks him for maintaining composure and notes that the force is reviewing public filming guidance. It's brief, professional, almost reluctant, but meaningful. The auditor reads it twice, then closes his laptop without smiling or celebrating. He knows the work isn't about victory. It's about visibility. Change, however small, has started. Authority didn't crumble, it adapted. And that's all he ever wanted to see. Inside a modest police training suite, the viral clip now forms part of an official lesson plan. Chairs scrape softly against the floor as officers gather, notebooks ready. A training officer plays the footage, pausing at key moments to discuss correct procedure. "See here," she says, "this is where communication matters more than control." The tone is calm, not accusatory. The message is clear. Confidence must be grounded in competence. A sense of collective humility fills the room. It's not embarrassment now, but responsibility. Across the UK, similar sessions are taking place, a quiet reform spreading, one replay at a time. Elsewhere, the auditor receives a polite message from a police community liaison officer. They thank him for his composure and ask to use his video in future workshops. The auditor agrees immediately, knowing that the footage's power lies in its authenticity. For him, it's not about exposure. It's about evolution. He doesn't frame himself as an activist, just a citizen insisting on clarity. For the first time, both sides, camera and badge, begin to work toward the same goal: understanding. Across social media, the noise quiets. The debate has matured into dialogue. Former critics now discuss constructive engagement. Officers engage in comment threads, sharing accurate legal resources. The shift feels cultural. The audit no longer symbolizes tension, but transition. The auditor scrolls through these discussions silently, recognizing something rare: growth born from exposure, not outrage. The change isn't dramatic or loud. It's steady, deliberate, and genuine. Journalists revisit the story with a new tone. This wasn't confrontation, one article reads. It was collaboration. The coverage focuses less on the clash and more on what followed. Officers retrained, public confidence slightly restored. The footage now stands as a turning point, proof that accountability, when handled respectfully, doesn't weaken authority. It strengthens it. Every replay reinforces a shared lesson between enforcer and observer. Knowing the law protects everyone. Months later, the same high street where it all began looks unchanged. Buses idle, cafes open, rain streaks down familiar glass. But when an officer spots a young man filming outside the council building, there's no confrontation. A polite nod, a brief smile, and the officer continues his patrol. The exchange lasts seconds, unnoticed by most, yet within it lies proof that something fundamental has shifted. Respect has replaced reaction. Understanding has replaced authority for authority's sake. In a small home office, the auditor reviews the footage that changed everything. The faint hum of his computer fills the silence. Pausing the clip, he studies the expressions. His steady calm, their hesitation, the shift from challenge to clarity. He realizes the value of restraint. How silence, used well, speaks louder than confrontation. This wasn't about winning. It was about showing what accountability could look like when stripped of ego. He scrolls through thousands of comments, stopping on one. "I learned something today." That, he thinks, is the true result. Not views or attention, but awareness spreading beyond a single street. He decides to record a follow-up video. The setup is minimal: a tripod, a small microphone, and his voice. He speaks with the same calm conviction heard on that street. "This isn't anti-police," he says. "It's pro-accountability. Knowledge protects everyone." His tone isn't defensive, but steady and grounded. Viewers respond instantly, thanking him for clarity and respect. Some even admit they'd misunderstood auditors before. The video feels less like explanation, more like reassurance, a reminder that civility can coexist with scrutiny. Days later, the media tone evolves. Headlines shift from "Auditor confronts police" to "Conversation sparks policy review." Experts call it a rare example of calm advocacy, reshaping public discourse. Civil rights groups cite the clip in discussions about transparency and training. For the auditor, it's strange to see his quiet moment dissected nationally, yet he welcomes it. Every headline means more people learning their rights. What began as a solitary walk with a camera has become a symbol of balanced accountability. At a local community center, a small group gathers for a "Know Your Rights" evening. The auditor isn't leading it, he just listens. A retired officer explains how communication can prevent conflict. "It's not about catching people out," he says. "It's about working together." The auditor smiles quietly in the back row, proud yet humbled. His footage, once controversial, now fuels cooperation between public and police. Real progress, he realizes, doesn't come from outrage. It comes from people willing to learn. Later that night, the auditor steps outside into the quiet street where his first audit began. The air smells of rain and tarmac. He looks around. The same shop fronts, the same street lamp glow. Yet everything feels different. In that ordinary space, something extraordinary unfolded. The footage may fade with time, but the lesson remains etched in the minds of thousands. Calm knowledge changes more than confrontation ever could. As the camera powers down, its reflection lingers faintly in the puddle below, a silent echo of progress. The story refuses to fade. National news segments feature snippets of the audit alongside interviews with legal experts and retired officers. The discussion, once confined to online circles, now reaches households across the UK. Filming in public isn't defiance, one barrister tells a presenter. It's documentation, a safeguard for everyone. The auditor watches quietly from home, the same calm expression on his face. It's strange hearing his voice on national television, but reassuring too. Proof that something important has broken through. Across living rooms and offices, the message lands. Accountability isn't rebellion. It's responsibility. In stations nationwide, training officers include the clip in updated engagement sessions. Recruits sit forward, pens tapping softly as instructors outline new guidance. Engage with calm, act with clarity. The footage plays, and no one scoffs. Instead, heads nod, understanding that the public lens is part of modern policing. Transparency has moved from nuisance to necessity. The shift is subtle, but it's real. What once embarrassed the service now strengthens it, shaping officers into representatives of knowledge, not assumption. Online, the narrative changes tone. Supporters of the auditor's work speak respectfully about policing, while officers respond with measured agreement. "We're adapting," one constable comments, "and that's what matters." The once divided comment sections now read like discussions rather than arguments. Calm discourse has replaced the old hostility. Somewhere between screen and street, balance has been restored. Accountability, when mutual, doesn't divide. It unites those who understand its value. Podcasts and editorial panels revisit the moment months later. It wasn't the confrontation that mattered. A host remarks, it was the restraint. The clip has become a case study for communication under scrutiny. Calm professionalism is now praised as much as courage. In an era of viral outrage, this one video proved that dignity could still drive change. The soundbite plays again, crisp and confident. "You're a public servant. I'm in a public space. 7 words that shifted perception more than any argument could. By the close of the year, the auditor has stepped back from filming, focusing instead on community education. Police forces quietly roll out new communication workshops. Reports show fewer complaints linked to filming misunderstandings. There are no viral moments this time, only quiet progress. Change, as it turns out, doesn't always need spectacle. Sometimes it grows in silence, shaped by one calm voice and one camera that refused to blink. Months later, the incident is remembered less as confrontation, more as a catalyst. It appears in training slides, law lectures, and media panels, a single clip turned case study. For the auditor, life moves quietly on. He no longer films as often. Instead, he advises those starting out. Stay calm, he tells them. Knowledge doesn't shout. The encounter that once drew heated debate now symbolizes evolution. The film never sought fame, it sought fairness. And through that lens, it succeeded, proving that transparency, handled with restraint, can strengthen the very institutions it questions. At a civic forum in London, the auditor speaks briefly, on stage. No bravado, no rhetoric, just experience distilled into perspective. This isn't about catching police out, he says. It's about ensuring we all play by the same rules. Applause follows, gentle and genuine. Among the crowd sit officers, journalists, and everyday citizens, all listening with equal respect. The lesson has transcended sides. It's not the camera that made the difference. It's the composure behind it. Later, the Home Office releases a short statement referencing the incident indirectly. Professional engagement builds public trust. The wording is neutral, but the implication clear. Lessons learned have reached the upper tiers. For the first time, the auditor feels the system listening, even if it won't say so aloud. That acknowledgement, however understated, signals progress. Accountability has entered the conversation, not as threat, but as principle. The video, still online, continues to gather quiet traction. Each week, new viewers stumble upon it, commenting things like, "I didn't know my rights before this," or "This restored my faith." It's no longer viral, but timeless. A steady educational current flowing beneath louder headlines. The auditor rarely checks the numbers now. He doesn't need to. The knowledge has already spread, replicated in every calm interaction it inspired. That's legacy, influence without control. 1 year on, the street looks the same. Rain on stone, buses idling, voices mingling. Yet something intangible has changed. Officers now nod at citizens with cameras. Citizens respond with courtesy. A shared understanding hums quietly beneath everyday life. The audit's legacy isn't the footage, but the shift in tone. The reminder that law, when respected, needs no defense. The auditor walks past the same spot, camera switched off, smiling faintly. Sometimes the best proof of progress is the peace that follows.